My name is Amelia Hart, and if you had told me a year ago that my wedding would go ahead without my best friend by my side, I would have laughed and called you mad. But 2 days before the biggest day of my life, I stood in a quiet bridal suite in Notting Hill, staring at an untouched lavender satin dress that should have been worn by my maid of honor, Isla Green. And she was gone. No explanation, no message, just a short call and a single sentence. I can't do this, Amelia. I'm sorry. It was the first time in 14 years that Isla let me down. And the worst part, I never saw it coming. We met in secondary school, both awkward, bookish, and slightly invisible. Isla was loud where I was shy, daring where I was cautious. I once watched her climb onto the roof of the science block just to retrieve a paper airplane. She became the kind of friend who walked into your house without knocking, knew the name of your first crush, and cried when you cried even when she didn't know why. We were inseparable. She was there when I met Oliver, the man I'd end up marrying. She was there when he proposed beneath the fairy lights on the Serpentine Bridge, and she was the first person I called when we set the date. "Of course I'll be your maid of honor," she said, teary-eyed. "I've been planning it since we were 15. I believed her. The planning was chaotic and joyful. Dress fittings, cake tastings, seating charts. Isla was involved in everything. She picked the bridesmaids' dresses, helped me write my vows, and even designed custom place cards. She gave speeches at the bridal shower, made me laugh when I wanted to scream, and whispered, "You're going to be the most beautiful bride London's ever seen." But then something changed. 2 weeks before the wedding, Isla started pulling away. She missed 2 fittings. Then she said she couldn't make it to the final rehearsal because of work. I waved it off, convinced it was stress or nerves. I didn't want to be a bridezilla. Then came the phone call. It was a Thursday evening. I had just come back from picking up my wedding shoes. My phone buzzed. Isla, calling. I smiled and answered, "Please tell me you finally tried on the shoes." Silence. Then her voice, low and shaking. "I can't do this, Amelia. I'm sorry." "What are you talking about?" I can't be in the wedding." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. "You're kidding." "I'm not." "Why?" "Isla, what's going on?" But she didn't answer, just hung up. I stared at the screen, convinced she'd call back. She didn't. The next day, I went to her flat. Her roommate said she'd packed a bag and left late the night before. She looked upset, she added, but she didn't say where she was going. I tried calling again, texted, nothing. The day before the wedding, I emailed, still nothing. And then it was Saturday. I stood in the bridal suite surrounded by smiling bridesmaids and caterers with clipboards. Everything was beautiful. Roses and soft pinks and creams, candles flickering gently along the aisle, and a string quartet tuning their violins. But there was one empty chair in the front row, one lavender dress still on a hanger, and one silence I couldn't ignore. Oliver held my hand before the ceremony. "You okay?" he asked, brushing his thumb across my knuckles. "I don't know," I admitted. "It feels wrong, like something's missing." He nodded. "I know you loved her, but this is our day. Don't let her absence erase that." I tried. I really did. The ceremony went on. The vows were said. The music played. And I did marry the man I loved. But every time I looked to my right, to the spot where Isla should have been, I felt like the wind had been knocked out of me. That night I danced. I smiled for photos. I hugged relatives. But the ache remained, a ghost at the edge of my vision. When the night ended, I sat on the hotel balcony in my wedding dress, barefoot, holding a glass of champagne that had gone flat. And then my phone buzzed. One new message from Isla. "I'm so sorry. I know I ruined everything. I just couldn't be there. Not like that. I need to explain. Please, can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a long time, and then I replied, "Tomorrow, noon, you know where." The next morning, I went to the cafe we'd always loved, the one on Portobello Road with the crooked tables and mismatched mugs. We used to come here every Sunday after long walks or messy breakups, or just when the world felt too heavy to carry alone. I arrived before noon, ordered tea, and sat in the far corner booth. The seat across from me remained empty for 15 long minutes, and then she walked in. Heisla looked like she hadn't slept in days. Her dark hair was tied up messily, face bare, her coat hanging awkwardly off one shoulder. She paused when she saw me, unsure if she should smile or not. I didn't move. She slid into the booth. Neither of us spoke at first. "Thanks for coming," she said eventually. "You left me," I said quietly. "2 days before my wedding, Isla. I know. You were supposed to be my person, my maid of honor. You vanished, without a word." "I know," she whispered, eyes filling. I didn't want to cry, I wanted to yell. But when I looked at her, really looked, I saw someone already unraveling. So I said, "Tell me the truth, all of it." She nodded slowly, and then she began. "It started with the wedding planning," Isla said, fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. "Not your fault. Not anything you did. I loved being a part of it. I really did." She paused, looking out the window. "But the closer it got, the more I felt like I was losing you. I frowned. You weren't losing me. You were, not in a cruel way, not intentionally, but things were changing. You had Oliver. You had this perfect future, and I was just stuck, still single, still living in a flat share, still waiting for something that never came. I didn't know what to say. I should have been happy for you," she continued, and I was. But part of me felt left behind. I hated myself for it, but it wouldn't go away. She swallowed hard. And then, the day before the rehearsal, I saw something. She reached into her coat and pulled out an envelope. I wasn't snooping. I swear. It was sitting on the counter at your flat. I thought it was a supplier invoice, but it wasn't. She pushed it across the table. I hesitated, then opened it. It was a letter from Oliver, but not to me. It was to Isla. Isla, I don't know how to say this without sounding like a coward, but I need to get it out.
Sometimes I think about you, not just as Amelia's friend, but as someone I connect with, more than I should. More than is appropriate. I know this isn't right, and I know you would never do anything to hurt her, but I had to say it, even just once, on paper. I won't act on it. I won't bring it up again, but you deserve to know. Oh, I stared at the page as the room seemed to spin. My hands felt cold. I looked up at Isla, throat tight. "I didn't reply," she said, her voice cracking. "I didn't say a word. I never encouraged him. Ever." "I believe you," I whispered, because somehow I did. "I thought about telling you," she continued, "but it was 2 days before the wedding. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to be the reason everything fell apart, and I didn't want you to think I was trying to steal him." She wiped a tear away.
"So I disappeared instead. I thought if I wasn't there it would be easier, that you'd have your perfect day, and maybe I'd fade into the background like I was never meant to be there." I didn't speak, because the truth was, I didn't know what to feel. We sat in silence. People came and went. Cups clinked. Someone laughed nearby, and then I said, "He never told me." I figured. I stared at the letter again. The neat handwriting. The cowardice of it all. "You could have said something," I murmured. "I didn't want to hurt you." "But you did." She nodded, tears falling freely now. "I know. I'm sorry." I closed the envelope and placed it on the table between us. "I don't know what to do with this," I admitted. "With you, with him, with any of it. I'll respect whatever you decide." And for once, she didn't try to fix it. She just sat there and let the weight of the truth linger. It took me a week to tell Oliver. We were back from the honeymoon by then, though calling it a honeymoon felt wrong. It had been beautiful, yes, but distant. I'd been distracted the whole time. Something had broken before we ever boarded the plane. I gave him the letter. I watched his face as he read it. I was in a weird place, he said. I'd been drinking. We'd had a fight that day, remember? You said I wasn't helping with the guest list. I didn't reply. It didn't mean anything. It meant enough to write it down. He reached for my hand. I pulled it away. I didn't cheat, he said. But you wanted to, I replied softly. He had no defense for that. We didn't split up immediately. That would have been too clean. Instead, we lived like strangers for 3 months, eating dinner at different times, sleeping on different sides of the bed, pretending things were fine when friends asked how married life was. Until one night I came home and found him packing a bag. I think we both know this isn't what we wanted, he said, and I let him go. No screaming, no slamming doors, just goodbye. Isla and I didn't speak for a while after that. I needed space, not out of hatred, but out of grief. I'd lost 2 people at once, and I didn't know how to hold that weight. But one morning I walked by the same cafe on Portobello Road and saw her sitting inside, alone, reading. She looked up and smiled, a small, tentative smile. I walked in. We talked for hours, about everything and nothing, about life, about loss, about the fact that sometimes love comes in strange, tangled forms, and friendship survives only when we let go of the parts that were never honest. She never defended herself, never tried to rewrite the story, and slowly we found our way back, not to what we were, but to something gentler, something real. 1 year later, I hosted a small photo exhibit, portraits of women on the cusp of change. I called it The Space Between Vows. At the launch, Isla stood in the back holding a glass of wine, watching me quietly. When it was over, she handed me a card. Inside, she'd written, "You were right, I should have said something, but I'll never stop being proud of the way you handled everything. You deserved better, and I'm still learning how to be better too. Love always, Isla." Not every love story ends at the altar. Not every betrayal needs to be loud. Sometimes the deepest heartbreaks are the quietest ones, the people who vanish without explanation, and the friendships that have to be rebuilt from the ground up. But if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Some people leave because they don't know how to stay, and some come back, not to pick up where they left off, but to finally say the words they should have said all along. Thank you for listening to The Story Voice. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. And if you've got a story you think the world needs to hear, drop it in the comments. I might just tell it next. Until then, keep listening and keep feeling.